Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes in the Hole and Socks Type Thing. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. This is episode 128 of In the Hole and episode 30 of Socks Type Thing. We've got very productive, fun weeks for the Giants and Cubs to talk about. A little bit, not quite as good a week as for the Tigers, but it's up there. Certainly not quite as good weeks for your White Sox or my Oakland A's. We've got a badass of the week to settle on at one point, and we have a very, very predictable and often nominated asshole of the week. We're gonna finish up the show as we're approaching the All-Star game. We're gonna do our own Major League A-Holes All-Stars. We're gonna go around the infield and make those selections from the 5 teams that we follow here. We're gonna decide who should be a Major League A-Hole All-Star. So I think we might as well just go ahead and jump into the news.
Well, we're going to start off with, oddly enough, on an 8-game win streak, the second hottest team in baseball, because the Cubs are in the division with the hottest team in baseball, the Cincinnati Reds, who are looking for their 10th win in a row. Where did that come from? I don't know. But where did these Giants come from?
Wow. Yeah.
They are keeping me involved in baseball right now, because if all I had were the White Sox, I'm not sure I would be podcasting right now. But
it's the beauty of having a National League team and an American League team.
It is.
One's usually going to be up, one's usually going to be down. Maybe they're both up. They're usually not both down, but
yeah,
I've suffered through that too.
I don't know. At the beginning of the year, I think everyone was down in this Major League A-Holes. I think we were pretty much like a central division. But now the Giants, 8-game win streak that included this weekend. I would call this a historic sweep of the Dodgers, where they outscored them 29-8 at Dodger Stadium. I mean, take your fucking LA looks, your LA money, and get the fuck out of your own fucking stadium, you pieces of shit. That was a statement series. Then last night, after the team we'll talk about in a little bit, begrudgingly, the White Sox, the Giants were on the ropes. They were down 4-0 against the Padres. We're chipping away. They end up tying it on a wild pitch, a common theme on this podcast, a wild pitch scenario and someone winning or tying. But then earlier in the game, Mike Yastremski had a home run to bring them a little bit closer. And then splash hit number 101, I believe, maybe 102 at this point. He sends everyone home in the bottom of the 10th with a 3-run bomb into McCovey Cove, his second walk-off splash hit in his career there. His first one was in 2020. I don't even know what to say. They're 12-4 in June. They've outscored their opponents in June 104-56. I mean, you don't even need good pitching when you're putting up runs like that. Everything's clicking.
I thought you hated run differential. What's going on here? I've heard more run differential tonight than I've ever heard.
Well, I've learned from you. It's over a longer period of time.
So you're quoting the weekend stats. I like it. You haven't learned a thing.
No, 104-56 is the month of June so far.
All right.
The entire month. That's 16 games.
Still a misuse, but
all right, they have a plus 50 overall for the season, if you must know. But
there we go. Now you're getting closer, but I like that you're embracing. You're not so militant against everything that has to do with run difference.
So now they sit 3.5 games out behind the Arizona Diamondbacks. I still can't believe I'm saying that right now. The Padres remain sub 500 and look like a team of a bunch of individuals who all wanted fat contracts, and now they have them. So
much less than the sum of their parts.
Yes, exactly. The Dodgers are trailing the Giants by a game, not only in the NL West standings, but also now in the wild card standings, because the Giants have moved up to the number 2 position in the wild card standings. Damn. They have a game lead over the Dodgers there. Everything's coming up Giants right now. They're a fun team to watch. My only concern is is this for real? Is it not?
Yeah.
I don't know what to think. Is this just a really good run right now? But I mean,
I think
it's not like they're beating shitty teams, they're beating good teams. So
I think the team that you're trailing, the Diamondbacks, I think their fans are suffering from that more than you guys. Are the Diamondbacks for real? Of course, they have
yeah.
Corbin Carroll that just came up, who might be not just the rookie of the year as predicted by Bob Knight. He might be the fucking MVP, but I don't know. Back to the Giant or the Dodgers series. I mean, you guys beat them. What night was that? You won 15-0.
Yeah.
Was that Saturday night?
That was I thought that was
They all
Sunday.
blend together, but maybe it was Sunday. But yeah, that was the worst shutout defeat in Dodgers history, dating back to 1898. So there's something going on there. Of course, that was a large part of your run differential, which usually that's part of your argument, your previous argument before you embrace run differential, that could get skewed by one game, but that's all right. Yeah, so I mean, you're beating up on your division opponents. The Diamondbacks, I thought they'd be okay. Neither of us picked them to be in the race necessarily.
No, the team we picked to be winning the division is like 5 or 6 games under 500 right now in fourth place.
I think since you are set up in, as you mentioned, in the wild card race pretty well right now, I think you've got better reason to believe the Giants can do something than most of the other teams we cover here. So we have not much to root for in the 5 teams we cover here. So I would embrace it. You got to run with it while you're going. You're 8-2 in your last 10. It's an impressive run. So
it is. It's been fun to witness. I just shut the Sox game off last night and watched the Giants game instead. So,
who's your rookie call up? 21-year-old Luis Motis, something like that. He just got called up, and I think he's been knocking the cover off the ball. It was like your number one prospect. So
yeah, that's
something to do with.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about the Giants is they haven't really had like a highly rated farm system. So I guess the question is, was the ranking way off, or is the ranking way off, or are these guys playing above what they're gonna the sum of, to your quote on the how the Padres aren't the sum of their parts, are they like way above what they're really gonna be? But I don't know. Everyone they've plugged in from the farm system, outside of the failure of Joey Bart so far, has had a decent amount of success with the organization. You wonder if part of Joey Bart's problem is coming in to be the heir apparent, to one Buster Posey. Those are big shoes to fill, and maybe the pressure of that has gotten to him in his.
Is he younger? Did they potentially call him up too soon? Or
there's that potential. He was drafted and then like up the next year. So he's back down again. But so I don't know. But other than that, like to your point, like the rest of the rookies that they've plugged into positions have been stellar. So I don't know.
I do want to thank your Giants for sweeping the St. Louis Cardinals in the first time in 25 seasons. That doesn't make sense. Let me read this stat again. He swept the Cardinals in St. Louis for the first time in 25 years.
Yeah, so I was gonna say they've swept the Cardinals.
Yeah, it seems like that could have happened. So yeah, in St. Louis though, which I guess you should play him often enough. But thank you, regardless. Helping out my Cubs. If we want to transition over to the north side of Chicago,
if we have to, let's do it.
We do have to. The other 8-2 over the last 10 games, Chicago Cubs have had a great week. Started with a sweep in Pittsburgh, then went to Wrigley Field, in which they beat the Baltimore Orioles 2-1. Baltimore, second best record in the league. They're actually playing in Tampa right now for the two best American League teams record wise, I believe. And I think the Baltimore is kicking the shit out of them tonight. It's a Tuesday night.
6-0.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on. How the Cubs can beat up on them and then they don't skip a beat and go right to Tampa, or maybe Tampa's not what we really think they are, but who knows? Cubs won last night back in Pittsburgh, 8-0. They are really set up in an interesting way. They've got they're finally within 4 games of 500. They are 3.5 back in 4th place still in the NL Central, but they've got 2 more games this week with Pittsburgh, and then they head to London to face the aforementioned St. Louis Cardinals.
That sounds like a trap series.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. The second London series, the first was back in 2019 with of course, the Red Sox and Yankees. I didn't watch a whole lot of that. I don't remember much of that. Did you remember watching that series at all?
No, I didn't even realize there was another London series.
Yeah, the big story from that is they play. Of course, they played in a
oh yeah, no, I remember that. The fucking field was like a little league field.
Yeah, it was a ridiculous field.
Yeah, there was like a shit ton of homers and stuff.
This London Stadium, which is obviously it was built for the Olympics, but it's definitely a soccer stadium. It's kind of tried to be retrofit into a baseball field. Yeah,
yes.
Ended up being a 2-game series where 50 runs were scored.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was even accusations that they had the juiced ball besides the small dimensions of the ballpark. Just so many balls going out. It was not a representative product to show the British or to show all of Europe, but
they were actually playing with like the rubber balls we used to play with as kids.
As far as I can tell, the field dimensions are different this year, and it's. I tried to do some research this afternoon. There's a map that MLB is showing that shows a different footprint of it. It's the same stadium, but somehow they took out some seats in the outfield so they can push the walls back. The original dimensions, I think, were 300 down each line.
Yeah,
and then only 385 to center.
Yeah, 385 to center is a joke.
So this, I couldn't find dimensions anywhere, but at least the 2 drawings they showed, it looked like it probably went back to maybe 400 feet. The power alleys were a little bit deeper too, so it should play a little more normal. But of course, it's such an odd thing to fly 2 teams to England for a 2-game series. Have you been to London or England, or have you been overseas?
I have not been to. I've been overseas,
okay. But this is a difficult question.
Yeah, okay. No, just Australia, not.
Okay, so you know about jet lag for sure.
Oh yeah, I was a day ahead. Yes.
Well, I can't even imagine flying to Australia, but I have been to London twice, so I know a little bit about how the jet lag works there, and I know the best way to combat it. I flew essentially overnight, and we got there in the morning, and me and my buddies, we just stayed up. We just started drinking. Basically, we flew into London the first trip, and then we went to Dublin immediately. We just went directly to St. James Gate, the Guinness Brewery, and just started drinking for the rest of the day and just stayed up. And I didn't have jet lag because we just essentially stayed up for 36 hours and just got up the next day and we're raring to go. So it's interesting because I heard Nico Horner on the Parkins and Spiegel show this afternoon, talking about what their sleep pattern or what their plan is, at least, and they were told definitely stay up the first day when you get there. I doubt they were told to go drinking that whole day, but like we did. But,
you don't think that was part of it?
Yeah, but apparently that works. Just staying up. Just make sure you don't take a nap because you're just going to be all screwed up. So hopefully the Cubs abide by that. Take advantage of the just pathetic St. Louis Cardinals right now. They're having a historically bad year, and it couldn't be more hilarious to me or more well timed. So Cubs, they are 4th place still, only 3.5 back in the division. Win tonight, win tomorrow in Pittsburgh, and then take a couple games in London. You never know where you're at. But of course, the team who is surging ahead is, as you mentioned, the Cincinnati Reds coming out of nowhere. They've had some call-ups.
Them for dead.
Yeah,
they had dead a few weeks ago.
Yeah, they had some impactful call-ups, and then they had the return of Joey Votto last night, who had, of course, hit a home run as soon as he comes back. So they are surging. So it's an interesting time. Like we've been talking about all year. We're just hoping our teams keep things fairly interesting. You know, the Cubs being within 4 games of 500 is as interesting as they've been in a while, and to be only 3.5 back in the division is compelling at least. So I'll be looking forward to that. We'll have the full recap of the London series next week. We'll see how it all works out. But I want to circle back to Pittsburgh and their trip to Wrigley Field last week, in which the Cubs swept them. I don't know if you heard this story, but this was going to transition us into some shit I couldn't make up.
Okay.
The what is customary, all teams take a charter bus from.
I did not hear this, but go ahead.
Yeah. from Wrigley Field, either to the airport or, in this case, where the Pirates were on their way to Milwaukee, they just take the bus all the way to Milwaukee, because essentially when you get to O'Hare, you're already halfway to Milwaukee anyway. So
Right.
why not just take the bus all the way? So that's very customary. You've seen them. You used to live in the neighborhood. I've seen them many times. Buses line up at right on Sheffield there, right down the first base line. It's actually a little note to any autograph seekers. That's a great place to line up if you're trying to get an opposing team's line autograph, because you can kind of get up close to those buses and where their players are coming out, half hour after the game. I'm not an autograph seeker, so it didn't really make much difference to me, but
I waved to Dusty.
Regardless. What's that?
I saw Dusty coming out of the lot once, waved to him back in the day.
Nice. Well, so that was all pretty normal. There's a police escort, of course, for the Pirates to head out I-94. What isn't usual is to see the bus that the motorcade is escorting veer off the path from the escort, to which the police obviously thought something was very wrong, eventually pulling the bus over on I-94 around Dempster. They assumed it was a medical emergency. That's the only thing they could think of, like how the bus that they are escorting can't follow them down the highway. Unfortunately, the driver, one Ronald Funderburk, age 61, of Shelby, North Carolina,
Shelby.
He was not having a medical emergency. He was drunk. He was drinking his face off, apparently. Somehow lost the motorcade only miles outside of Chicago. It's not funny, I guess. We can laugh because no one was hurt. It's not funny to see somebody that is that much of an alcoholic that can't realize that he's being escorted by the police. They might notice if he's drunk driving.
That's what Wrigley does to you, man. It just makes you drink.
I guess.
Party evidence fair, man.
I'm really confused at how all that could happen. It's good. The players are okay. No one was injured on the roads. He was arrested. What I'm trying to figure out now is the logistics after he was arrested. Like, how did they get another bus driver out on I-94 at Dempster? Like, how long were the Pirates waiting there for a new bus driver?
I bet Kutch just hopped in and drove.
I can't believe it. You stole my joke. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like maybe Kutch just became Batman and started driving the bus. He can
Kutch
take care
does
of
everything, man. Kutch is a crafty veteran. Kutch drove it.
That's a sign of a good leader there. It's like, fuck it, I'll take the wheel. How far is Milwaukee? We can get there. So
give me a fucking power bar and a Gatorade, and I got this.
So yeah, that was. I mean, it was tangentially Cubs related.
Unfucking believable. That is crazy.
Definitely some shit I couldn't make up.
Oh my god.
Well, for the last thing I want to talk about with the Cubs, I kind of want to bring up, as we're approaching the halfway point in the season. It's very early to be drawing any conclusions, but I thought it was time.
I think you're safe on this one though, but go ahead.
Yeah,
I know where you're going with this, and they made the best decision.
Yeah, I
got to eat some crow on this one, Smitty.
Yeah, I need to give myself the L. I'm gonna throw the big blue navy L flag that the Cubs like to fly for some reason when they lose games. I'll take the L on my preseason diatribe against Jed Hoyer and the practice of the Cubs. Their free agent signings that I said a lot, many times, were confusing activity with accomplishment. Specifically, I railed against the idea of signing Dansby Swanson, as I characterize it as like essentially winning fourth prize in a race of four, as the famed 2023 shortstop class. Any one of those four players were available to the Cubs, I thought, and I thought Swanson would have been the least valuable. And so far, I couldn't be more wrong. Number one, I'm going to start at the bottom of the list. I'm just going to go by WAR for right now.
There you go.
Both Trey Turner, who I was endorsing by far to be the next Cubs shortstop for the next decade or so. He's got a .9 WAR right now, which is, I mean, win above replacement. He's on a $300 million, however many year contract with the Phillies now. You're looking for more than .9 WAR out of your shortstop. Ironically enough, probably my second choice would have been Carlos Correa. I've been pining for him to go to my Tigers for the last 2 years.
Never understood it, but go ahead.
He signed a 6-year deal for $200 million with the Twins, and he has the same .9 WAR.
It hasn't played a lot.
Yeah, he hasn't even played that. Which, yeah, when he does play, we'll see. But the other one that I didn't really consider a whole lot, because he never really came up in Cubs potential conversations, was Xander Bogaerts, who ended up with your aforementioned San Diego Padres, who are chronically underachieving. He's got a more respectable 1.6 WAR, which you could certainly live with. But what's interesting in all this, and why it was remarkable and enough for me to make a segment over, is Dansby Swanson. My disparaging remarks couldn't have been further from the truth. He has a 2.9 WAR, which is by far the best of the 2023 shortstop free agent class. He's actually the highest WAR of any of the 5 teams that we cover here. There's no one on those teams with a higher WAR right now, believe it or not. Luis Roberts actually pretty close, and we'll get to that when we get to our Major League A-holes All-Star nominations. But yeah, so essentially he is 2 wins better than both Carlos Correa and Trey Turner, and over a win better than Xander Bogaerts. So I'm going to take the L there. I think I need to take the L from time to time. I say all sorts of audacious things, and when I'm wrong, I need to point it out. So
yeah, you
far,
do.
So far, halfway through the season, I'm way off. Of course, all these contracts are, I think Swanson's is actually the shortest, or no, it's a 7-year deal. So Correa's would be the shortest. So I guess we can draw conclusions after 6 years, but so far I'm going to take the L.
Yeah, and you'll happily take that L.
Yeah, well, so that's all I've got for the Cubs. I want to transition over to my Detroit Tigers. We're actually on my screen right now. I think it was 0-0 last I saw.
1-0 Royals, top of the
well, they were down 4-0 last night, and they figured out a way to get back into it. But
it's the Royals. I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's the beauty of playing the Royals and playing in the AL Central.
Exactly.
Well, last week I was calling this the June of Doom for the at one point 0-9 Tigers in the month of June. They turned that around pretty dramatically. They've won 4 of their last 5. They've scored 5+ runs in 8 of the last 9 games, which is kind of remarkable considering how offensively challenged they've been for the last 2 years. They're still amongst the lowest in OPS and runs scored in the league. They just won a series in Minnesota, which is usually a house of horrors. Even more remarkable, they won it with such a depleted starting rotation that they actually had not 1 but 2 bullpen days, and they won those games. It's It's crazy. When I saw that how the rotation was going to work out, I thought it was going to be a twin sweep for sure, but didn't work out that way. Tigers took 3 out of 4. They actually beat Sonny Gray and Joe Ryan, making it that much more remarkable because they rarely fare well against those two. Really, what's happened with the offense, at least, is Kerry Carpenter came back from injury, some left-handed pop. Matt Vierling came off the IL, brief IL stint, although he's been back. He didn't come. He was supposed to be back tonight. He had a back issue again, but so I'm not sure what's going on with him. But there's at least some left-handed pop coming back after the absence of Riley Green. Part of the offensive renaissance, believe it or not, has to do with Miguel Cabrera.
I saw you had a home run.
Yeah, I'll take another L as I was in my offseason to-do list. I was asking for the Tigers to buy him out of this last season so he wouldn't be playing at all. He's had a fantastic June. He's hitting 343 for the month. His OPS is just below 1,000, which is just incredible. He's got several doubles. He did hit the one home run, which was awesome to see. So I was way off on that. Not way off, but it's
no. I mean, I think in the end, it wouldn't have been a bad thing if that happened. But at least
it's a cruel. It was heartless and cruel for me to do that. It's been so much fun to watch him have this much fun on his farewell tour. We've made fun of the farewell gifts, but he's loving all of it. And to have a month that is turning out this well for him, I couldn't have seen. I don't think anyone saw this coming. It's still low on the power rankings, but still, if he's coming close to 1,000 OPS over the month, that's not bad. He's still fairly limited. He's only played in 11 games in the month, but still, that's a decent sample size that I'll run with for now. But that was just part of the fun. What's interesting, again, with our fucking terrible divisions, the Tigers find themselves in third place, only 4 games out now. And again, they're facing the Royals. They should be able to sweep this series in Detroit. Then they've got the Twins again, and this time it's in Detroit. So, I mean, it's right there. Of course, the Guardians are sitting there in second place, 2 games ahead of the Tigers. So I would think probably sooner than later we will see the Guardians in first place. But if all miracles of miracles happen, the Tigers have a really good week somehow and weekend, maybe they find themselves in first.
I mean,
ridiculous, but
it's the reason I was declaring a huge, loss on my part that the Sox would be in first place by the 16th of this month. Because
I called you out on that cruelly on social media.
But they were trending up just like Detroit is now, and that's all you need. You need to win, you win 5-6 games in a row in this division.
Yeah, you're right.
You could be in first place,
and then you lose 5 or 6, and you're shit again. So
or not even, but you're not even shit in the division.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that in a second. But and I mean, it just goes back to, shouldn't we just all be sellers at the end of the day? But whatever.
Yeah, it will.
There's you guys less of, because you have young, you have more young controllable talent there. But
there's some there's definitely some trade candidates.
You have trade candidates. The Sox have trade candidates, and I almost believe with some of the candidates on both sides, you could still be competitive in the fucking division and trade the guys away and get good guys back.
I think, with all of our teams in such weird divisions, I think we're going to have, we're literally not going to be able to have deep conversations about that, what to do one way or the other
until
the end
4th.
of July. Yeah. Well, July 4th, but I think it's going to another month, the end of July before we can really talk about it. Some other good news potentially for the Tigers down the road here is we've got Turek Skubal. I think this is his 3rd rehab start in AAA Toledo is tomorrow night. He's been mowing him down. Followed Thursday night by Matt Manning, who's recovering from I think it was a broken foot is what sidelined him earlier this season. And believe it or not too far behind those two could be Eduardo Rodriguez, recovering from the A4 pulley rupture of his left index finger.
What's weird is our elevator is out in the building with the same injury. So
that's trouble. Yeah. Well, fortunately, it seems to be the least serious of versions of that injury because he's already on a rehab program, so he might only be a few weeks away. It's possible Scooble could be back next week, and I think Manning could be back the week after that. So a severely depleted rotation might get some of the best reinforcements you could imagine. So I don't know. As negative as I was last week, it's crazy how positive I feel right now. Of course, that could all go down the drain if they lose this game tonight to Kansas City. So that's what on a razor's edge these our emotions are for this season of this bizarre AL Central race. That's all I've got for my Tigers. You started to bring up your White Sox, of course, because as always, they are the most interesting team in baseball, whether they are winning or losing. I think we've got a long list of topics. So
I don't know about that, but I will say, you were saying how the Tigers are, they're 4 games back. They're back in this race because they've won. What'd you say? Would they win 4 of their last 5 or something like that? The Sox are 3-7 their last 10, and they're only 5.5 games out of this race. So that sums up the AL Central at its finest. That you can win 3 games over your you could go 3-7 over 10 games, and they've lost like 1.5 games in the standings since that happened. So welcome to the AL Central, folks. Welcome to the Centrals. We'll just call this the Centrals because the Centrals are both bad. But I wanted to start off tonight's conversation, which was it's been an interesting topic because we used to have La Russa Palooza, and when
I miss La Russa Palooza. It was like my favorite drop ever.
It was great. It was great from a segment standpoint. Let's put it that way.
Maybe not on the field.
That was the only part that was good. But then, in looking, we started. We thought, and we came up with Grifoli's because we're old. And
you came up with that was great.
Yeah. So I don't know what this one is actually, because we're going to talk about the Jake Berger incident from this week. That's what I want to start off with. And
this is confusing because it's
Grifoli, or is it, because that's what I put it as till I started to look at the numbers, and then you back that up with Grifol taking the time to call Scott Merkin over and explain the logic behind what he was doing. So maybe it's just Grifol logic, but there's
I was going to call it like a Grifoli's plus the lineup Eastas.
Yeah, it's a little of both, because let's
Jake Berger batting 8th in the lineup.
Yeah, Jake Berger, potential all-star. He has the offensive resume to be on the all-star ballot, is batting 8th in the lineup, and everyone loses their fucking mind. Even I was like, why the fuck is Berger batting 8th? Like,
everyone became a lineup-ista that day.
I wasn't like, oh my God, you should fire Grifol, like a lot of people were, but like, I was just like, that doesn't seem to make sense. This guy's a potential all-star. You want to get him as many bats as possible. Now, when you dig further into it and look at Jake Berger's greatest successes this year in the batting order, 8th is actually his 4th best with a decent amount of games, and that's what I'm saying.
Cool.
Decent amount of games.
I'm glad you looked all those up because I'm not sure that's how Grifol phrased it, but yeah, I looked up the splits today too. I think it was just the ESPN stats page where you can pull up every position in the order. He's batted in 8 of the 9 positions. He only hasn't batted 3rd, which I found interesting too. But he's best at leadoff. But
that's one game. That was one game with one plate appearance. One
swing of the bat, he hit the home run. So he's got a 5,000 OPS in the leadoff spot. So put him in the leadoff spot.
His OPS plus is 1140 in the leadoff spot. So put him there. But Looking at OPS, in the A spot, he has a 952 OPS in 8 games played. What's interesting, though, is when you do move him up in the lineup, like if you bat him 5th, it's 1173 in 10 games. But if you bat him 4th, which he's batting tonight, it's 1319. So, and then it's 1024 in 7th. That's the third best. So
did I misread it, or is Grifol trying to justify his placing him there just by throwing out a random stat but not putting it into context like you just did?
Yeah, well, he did say, when I read through all the stuff with Merkin, is they're not just saying, all we can do is squeeze Jake in at 8th. It had to do with matchups and leveraging his numbers in that position and the idea of having guys on base in front of him to have one big swing change the game.
I saw that too. He was trying to say that he had better guys at getting on base deeper in the order than he did at the top of the order, which didn't make any sense to me either. So I feel like he just got caught in some circular logic that Merkin didn't really call him out on necessarily. He just reported what he said. But when he only referenced the OBP or his OPS in the 8 slot, not putting into context that's his 4th best position.
Yeah.
Again, I've got a larger qualm with the idea of making a decision of where to put somebody based on their OPS over one season. I mean, we're talking about 21 at bats that he's had in the 8 slot. That is not a representative sample size to make decisions on. There's also debates, within the analytics community, whether it matters at all where you are placed in the order. If it's all just completely random, you put your best, like you said, and we've said for years, you put your best hitters at the top of the order so they get more at bats. So it's not there's more to it than that, but to have him at 8th, and then to try to justify it like that just seems ridiculous.
I think the major Grifol wasn't so much, the numbers sort of say, okay, it's not totally crazy. But when he said in the post, when he talked about him getting 4 at bats, like the way your team is playing right now, there is no one in the 8th slot who's getting 4 at bats.
I think he only got 3 that night.
He only got 3.
So
he said he was going to get his 4 at bats no matter what, and it's like, no, he's not.
No, he could get 5 if you put him in the leadoff or 2 slot. I mean, it's easily happens, and for it to work the opposite way of what he's saying.
Yeah,
is this a symptom of he's starting to feel the pressure? Like,
I think so. I think that's why. I mean, I don't know that any other manager. We certainly know Tony wouldn't, but we know like any other manager other than someone who's never managed before would go out of the way to call over the White Sox, MLB beat reporter to justify his actions.
That's a really good point that he called him over. Yeah.
He said what he said in the post game.
He wasn't reacting to a question. He's trying to put his own agenda out there.
Yeah. And again, when you look at the numbers, like whatever, but like the idea that your second best hitter on the team is batting 8th is dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, are you trying to get Yastremski at 7 some better looks, who's not having a terrible season? He's having a better season than he had last year, but part of that's because they can't shift anymore. But like,
you mean for like lineup protection, like put
yeah. But like, who cares? Then you don't do that. Jake Berger.
I'm not sure how much lineup protection really exists either. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Because no one, those days of everyone always throwing a fastball on a 3-2 count or whatever, it's gone. They throw you a fucking slider and send you a packet.
That's baseball when we were kids.
Yeah, that's archaic thinking. I think it's archaic thinking.
I think it still prevails, though. I think you hear
I
that
agree,
a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we just still sum it up as a Grifol, but it wasn't. I don't know. I just have so many mixed feelings about it. I think the biggest mistake is the idea that Jake was still getting 4 at bats and that your second best hitter is batting 8th at all. This is kind of like when it kind of I had a weird like PTSD moment of like Lurie in the leadoff spot last year.
Oh my God.
So
The opposite issue. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, so that's how I wanted to open it up.
All the lineup Eastas out there have their day now, so we could bust on that.
In other news, I would just like to serve notice to MLB that I'm going to start a petition that all MLB games for the remainder of the season only be 7 innings. And that's on behalf of the Chicago White Sox, because they don't score 70% of the games over the last 2 weeks. They did not score a run after the 7th inning. And they were, in most cases in these games, in these 13 games, they were within a run or leading at that point. So as long as we get back to the revised doubleheader in COVID of the 7-inning doubleheaders, if the Sox can just play a series of 7-inning doubleheaders, they will be back in this race.
Why don't we just make this rule just for your White Sox?
Even better.
Just so you don't have to suffer through any extra inning. You can cut off 2 innings of every game that you don't have to suffer through anymore.
That's fair. That's Smitty. Thank you for being so empathetic toward my situation.
I think we can go to petition.com and set up Rob Manfred's email address to receive these.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, let's get that going.
We'll work on that.
This will be like put Pete in the seats again, but this will be Pete's petition.
That worked out so well too. So
yeah, it didn't work. I think I got 1 donation from Robin.
That was awesome. Hopefully we refunded that, but
yeah, we did refund that. In other news, let's switch gears away from the team as in members of the team or the GM or anything for a second, and talk about a really fun story that happened yesterday at the White Sox. Brady Nelson, a 14-year-old boy with brain cancer, was signed to an honorary 1-day contract yesterday with the White Sox and got to be on the field, do warm-ups with the team. They lined up and they did the starting lineup. I
saw that,
he ran through and gave them 5.
I didn't know what the story was. I saw the video of the kid running down getting the high fives, but
yeah, it's like a really rare form of it too. So he's having surgery within the next week. So
thanks.
Hopefully, Brady, everything goes good for you. But it's always nice, and all MLB clubs do this. So the White Sox are not unique in this. But when these stories are out there, it's just kind of worth sharing because it kind of makes you take a step back and level set yourself on how silly all this is, really.
Yeah, what's important and what bullshit we're making podcasts about.
I know. Speaking of silly, I think I want to bring this up because you brought it up to me. I was going to try to avoid it, but your favorite GM in all of baseball, Rick Hahn, on yet another holiday, Juneteenth, talked with the press. Again, these just happen
only on holidays.
They just lining up that way because it's when the Sox return home. Apparently, they're only returning home on holidays as of late. But
I guess
he spoke to the press, and you thought some of the things he said were a little bit interesting or debatable.
He attacked the credibility of national baseball journalists. Essentially, he wouldn't name names, but it was clear that he was talking about John Hahn.
Well, which I will agree with him on that.
You and I have attacked his credibility
on John Heyman's credibility.
Rick Hahn actually said he was pissed off about a radio interview. He wouldn't even name the station. Of course, it was 670 The Score.
Yeah, I don't think he's friendly with those guys at this point.
I guess not. He won't even say their fucking name. But I was listening to the interview at the time. John Heyman was asked by Mully whether he thought Grifol's job could be in jeopardy. And he's like, yeah, it could be. If things don't turn around, he could be one and done. And that irked Rick Hahn to the degree where he had to address the media and attack his credibility essentially. And I don't think it's anything. I mean, you and I rip on John Heyman and certainly Bob Nightingale all the time, but it was an opinion. I mean, he thought it's very possible. I think it's a plausible opinion that Grifol could feel the wrath of Hahn eventually, that he might be the scapegoat for this season. I don't think it's out of the
Yeah.
realm of possibility. And that literally pissed off Rick Hahn, and he didn't want that out there. He was defending his manager is more of what he was really trying to do, trying to squash any rumors that Grifol would be fired at any point. Or I just thought it was a really immature way to go about things, just to attack the media, and especially, even if it could be justified in many cases, but in this case, it just wasn't. It was just, he was asked a question, he put it out there, he gave his honest opinion, and it was a reasonable opinion. And Rick Hahn couldn't take it. He used it as a platform to beat up on the national media. He also said, anyone that's not here every day doesn't really. That's essentially how he attacks credibility. Right. Someone that's not here every day doesn't really know what's going on. The irony is, conversation Hahn framed around the unemployment now, the firing of James Fegan, beat reporter for The Athletic, who was part of large layoffs at your and I's favorite sports publication, The Athletic. Yeah. The White Sox no longer have a beat reporter from The Athletic, and James Fegan is clearly revered amongst his peers. He's been on the radio a couple times. There's been all sorts of articles written about it. I don't remember a journalist of any sort being talked about so much.
I know.
So outraged from his peers that he was let go. I didn't read him a whole lot. I'm sure I read him a little bit. I'm sure you read him a whole lot more than I have. But
I have.
From everything I've seen and heard, he's obviously a remarkable writer. Started out as a blogger, kind of like you and me, but with talent, and then worked his way all the way up into The Athletic and into his dream job. And now he's been let go. So that, the more that happens in this changing sports media landscape, the fewer local journalists you're going to have. So, on one hand, Rick Hahn is attacking the national journalists, but that's literally all we're going to have eventually if these things keep playing out the way they are. There's the ESPN 1000 that I used to listen to a lot there in Chicago. Yeah. They didn't have a beat reporter for the White Sox for years. I think they let Jesse Rogers split time now, but I think he spends more time with the Cubs potentially. But there's less and less media around the White Sox altogether, and I think that might be what Rick Hahn is going for. He doesn't want anybody around to get stories out there that he doesn't like, or get ideas out there that he doesn't like. And when you attack journalists directly, I think it's a dangerous thing. And I you and I do it. It has no consequence because we have no pull. But when a general manager of a Major League Baseball club is attacking the media, I think it's a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous precedent. I don't like, and especially his disingenuous way for him to frame it around the firing of James Fegan, I think is doubly appalling in a way. So nowhere near. I'm not going to call Rick an asshole, but I was surprised that was the first thing we've heard him say in several weeks, as he doesn't like to talk to the media at all. Now he's just attacking it.
Yeah, I mean, I won't ever blame someone for saying Heyman's a sensationalist or something like that, but you're 100% right. It was just misdirected this time because he was asked a question. He didn't say, I heard from within the organization. That's a Bob Nightingale.
That's what Bob Nightingale does constantly.
Yeah. But he didn't say that. He said, well, yeah, of course he could be fired. Someone's probably going to be the scapegoat for this mess, and managers are the scapegoat a lot. But it's like, yeah, I mean, there's you know what it is, though? It's a great tactic, an unexpected. He threw that out there in an unexpected manner. I think it was his way of trying to get everyone unfocused on all the hard questions he was supposed to be being asked.
That's exactly, that's a great
misdirection, point. Little misdirection, a slurve, maybe a fosh. And, then he escapes. He's whatever amount of time.
That's the story now. And
that's the story.
Else. Yeah.
He's also used whatever chunk of time that he sits out there for. He's used like 3 to 5 minutes of it by going on some diatribe. So now he has to, he can walk away after his 10 minutes, and half of it was taken up by nonsense, basically.
Well, and framing it around Fegan is what really gets me. So, and he grabbed all of their attentions because all those guys sitting there in the local media are friends of Fegan. So, they saw exactly what was going on, I think. But you're right. That's the story now. You and I are talking about it. That's all anybody could talk about is what Rick Hahn was saying today. So I don't know. Like I said, you guys are always the most entertaining team in baseball, no matter what's going on.
Speaking of someone who's been entertaining but not on the field is Tim Anderson. I don't know.
I have questions.
I always love a good conspiracy theory or sports babyish, a player being a baby. Scottie Pippen's legendary for it. When Jordan had left the team for 1 year, and Phil Jackson drew up a play in the playoffs for Kukoc to take the shot, and Pippen sat out the play because he wasn't the one taking the shot, and then Kukoc still nails the 3 to win. If you want to talk about
add that to the laundry list of reasons I hate the Bulls, but
add it to the laundry list on why Scottie Pippen is nothing without Michael Jordan is right there. But so I
different podcast.
Yeah, no, but here's what I was thinking. I'm curious if Timmy has a little bit of Scottie Pippen syndrome, because the game he gets injured in with his shoulder, which didn't look like anything happened, is the first game he's not batting leadoff anymore.
He also had just made a terrible base running blunder where he was doubled off first base on a pop out, a foul pop. I mean, he just had no idea where the ball was and ran to second and got doubled off first. So that was a weird one. I was actually watching that when it was happening because he got pulled from the game. And the first thing I thought is, well, Grifol just benched him for being brain dead on the bases, which I've seen with my Tigers on multiple occasions this year. It seemed like a reasonable course of action, but it came out later that he had a shoulder issue. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, he has a sore shoulder. They reported on it on Monday that doesn't seem to be any structural damage, and he could be back soon. The question is, though, to your point, too, speaking of conspiracy theories, did he get pulled? Is he in such a delicate space that instead of saying they pulled him, they said he left with a minor injury, because he actually does need to take some fucking time off to fucking clear his head and get his shit together?
That was my initial thought in my conspiratorial, cynical mind, and I thought they were just covering it up with a fake injury. But
yeah, I think that could be it too.
Either way,
think about scenarios play out.
Yeah. So he's not in the lineup today either, or is he?
No, he's not in the lineup today. Berger's batting fourth, where he has his highest OPS. Everything's right in the world for another gut-wrenching loss that occurs in the 7th inning tonight.
If you would just bat Berger leadoff, your problems would be solved.
Yeah, that one at bat
works every time.
That's what he'll be like.
Stats
he was batting 5,000 at leadoff. That's why I put him there. He had a 5,000 OPS.
We might be hearing that by the end of the week. I wouldn't be surprised.
We may. One other thing before we get into Badass of the Week, and we'll kick it off with a White Sox player, because that's how good I transitioned this.
Nice.
Podcast.
I see what you did there.
Sellers or buyers? The thing about it is the Tigers, the White Sox, the Cubs, they're all going to be in this division race probably for the rest of the season, outside of complete collapse, right? And even the Tigers had a complete collapse to start June and are back in the race. So
in third place.
Maybe that doesn't
4 games out.
Maybe that doesn't matter. Okay.
Makes no sense.
So here's my declaration as a White Sox fan. I don't care if they're 3 games back or 2 games back or 1 game back at the All-Star break. If they're not at least 500, I think they should sell off players. Yeah. I think it's fool's gold, and just to put this in perspective, as of tonight, I think I counted it right. There were 33 games left, including tonight's.
Oh, wow.
To the trade deadline. 21-12 they have to go to get to 500.
Yeah.
That's the watermark. They have to go 20. This team has to go 21-12. That includes the games against Atlanta. Well, the Mets, who are I don't even know what they are. They're like
who knows what the Mets
They're
are.
an enigma.
Yeah.
Or the Padres. They're more like the Padres. They spend all this money and
very similar.
But they're playing like a ton of over 500 teams. They got Oakland in there, and there's some, but they're playing like some really, really good teams along the way. Why not? And this goes back to the question you asked me probably about a month ago about Giolito. Why not start doing shit now? And you also, again, because this division is so bad, you may not really be totally crippling yourself in taking yourself out of it.
Yeah, you could jump the market and start with a vision towards next season or beyond, but not completely ignoring the potential for this season.
Yeah,
I mean, this division's so bad, does it make a difference if you lose Giolito?
Right. Does it make a difference if...
Can't help, but I don't know.
Yeah. Does it make a difference if tomorrow, before his value falls, because it may be at its highest point, you trade badass nominee of the week, Lance Lynn, right now?
Oh, are we transitioning right into our badass of the week?
That's how good I am. Yes. So one of our nominees for badass of the week, as we transition into it out of the White Sox, but still kind of linger in the White Sox, is Lance Lynn, who had a historic 16K game against the Seattle Mariners. It tied a White Sox record set back in 1954 by Jack Harshman.
Good old Jack.
Good old Jack. I have no idea who that is, but he had the record.
All right, 1954. Wow.
At least people know who Lance Lynn is, so that's good. Also, what was the other stat you had sent me? He set an MLB record for the season.
Yeah, season record, 33 swings and misses in that performance, which is, you pointed out, the Mariners swing and miss more than anybody. But in their 70 games, no one had gotten them to do it that many times. So
yeah, the Mariners swing and miss the third most of any team. They have the third highest whiff rate. After the Sox game, though, because I ran the stats pregame and post game, they are now second after the White Sox game against
I would think
against Lynn.
Lance Lynn did that, so he did it better than anyone else.
I don't think he's back.
Boy.
By the way, before we get into the rest of the badasses of the week, I'll just refresh everyone's memory. This is coincidentally against the Seattle Mariners too, but there's a guy named Phil Humber. You may or may not remember. He had a perfect game against the fucking Mariners. So
well, that was 15 years ago, I think.
I know. It's not the same team, but I'm just saying. I said it's coincidental, but it's kind of funny when you think about it, because he's no one knows who that is.
Yeah,
unless you lived in Chicago or were a Sox fan.
I think Lance Lynn is definitely worthy of our badass of the week, finding that one moment in time during this last week. Certainly needed to point him out in that tremendous performance, but his trade value is not going to be what you're looking for, as I think he's either last or second to last in ERA and all eligible pitchers. I know, I was making a joke there. Yeah, no, so I know, but I definitely wanted to bring up, just because it came out of nowhere, because he had been flailing and been the subject of much derision, and to have that performance kind of out of nowhere, it's pretty impressive and worthy of a badass nomination, at least. Yeah, we're pretty thin this week. Let's get to the we only have 3 total. Let's get to the batters. Yeah, let's get to the batters. Again, his name, this stud of a rookie, Chris Morel, is on the list again. He had 3 home runs, 7 runs, 10 RBIs, and a 1210 OPS. Ooh. Not too bad. And then Yaz, who I spoke about earlier, he had 4 home runs, 9 runs, 10 RBIs, including a walk-off winner.
at an 1165 OPS. I mean,
So Morel's got the advantage in OPS, but Yaz has more home runs.
more runs,
Okay.
which doesn't matter as much because that's someone else, and tied in RBIs.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think stacking them up, the OPSs are pretty close.
Yeah.
Yaz, he had the 2 home runs last night. Is that what you were saying earlier?
Yeah, 2 home runs
So
last
that's
night.
what put him over the top. I mean, that's what we're doing here with the badass of the week. We're taking a snapshot in time.
Yep.
So I would give on the offensive side, I'd give the nod to Yaz over Morel. I'm not just barely, but just because I think the 4 home runs and putting the two over the top last night, including the splash hit. So I don't know.
Not gonna get any argument out of me on that one.
You're in agreement. So
I am in agreement. So it's just a matter of, is it a Giant or a White Sox?
Well, I think again, I mean, Lance Lynn did give up 3. He was credited or charged with 3 earned runs in that game over 7 innings.
2 were courtesy, I think, of Ronaldo Lopez or something.
Yeah, but yeah. So I'm not sure the entire performance was there. I want to give it to Yaz. I guess it'd be 2 weeks in a row if we did that. We gave it to a Giant because I believe Jock Peterson was our badass of the week last week.
That's right. I mean, well, when you got you got the hottest team on this podcast, really.
That's the other thing. Yeah, I mean, I think
over 500, 8
Is
games over 500. I mean, who ever would have thought that was going to happen this year?
Is that the direction we're going in this week?
Let's go, Yaz!
Yaz is our badass of the week.
Yaz.
Congratulations.
All right.
Well, from badass of the week, I need to transition over to asshole of the week. Very predictable asshole of the week. I'm going to give it to Rob Manfred once again. He is famously our asshole of the year back in 2020. Probably could make him asshole of the year every year. He could be brought up as asshole of the week once a month. On this podcast, at least, because he usually puts his foot in his mouth somehow. But I tried not to, but I just couldn't ignore it this time because it involves my Oakland A's and the reverse boycott that we mentioned last week. It was actually about to occur as we were recording. It hadn't yet occurred, but there was some information out about it. How fans had organized a GoFundMe to fund their own T-shirt giveaway, which is unprecedented in any sport, I believe, to be handed out at the ballpark. They handed out 7,000 T-shirts, green T-shirts that said the word "sell" across the chest, which I thought was brilliant. Way to send their message to John Fisher and the Oakland A's. It was extremely well organized. They actually had it set up where they had a moment of silence in the 5th inning and followed that with a "sell the team" chant that reverberated.
That was loud.
Yeah, reverberated throughout the East Bay and further. It was an awesome statement by a fan empowerment. Ultimately meaningless, but it's cool to see how fans in Oakland do love their baseball. They've just been forced out by a fucking terrible owner who is over the last 10 years has spent the 4th least money on his payroll on the field. He has a shithole of a stadium that they have possums living in and sewage backing up that they barely pay attention to. They've neglected the fans, and fewer and fewer are showing up because they're just getting kicked in the face every time they do with a terrible product on the field. And they did show up. They showed that they are there, and they are furious and heartbroken that they're now losing their Oakland A's. Rob Manfred, I think. I'm not calling him the commissioner. I will always refer to him as the owner's lawyer because that's all he is. But beyond that, I think he might be a sociopath. I don't think he's even an asshole. I think his complete disregard for human feeling is palpable.
Breaking news segment: sociopath of the week.
Well, I think it's got to be Rob. I mean, he was asked after this great event of fan solidarity, he was asked what his thoughts were. And he mocked the fans. He mocked every single Oakland A's fan out there. He said he thought it was great that an almost average Major League Baseball attendance crowd showed up to a game and, sort of rolled his eyes and couldn't have said anything more ridiculous, offensive, or stupid to a team, an entire part of the market of, fandom that he's just completely insulting. And I don't know what kind of personality disorder he has. I don't know how anyone could be saying that in a position of power. What advantage that gives him, he's maybe trying to position it as, well, we have such good attendance, but Oakland sucks, that we, had to move the team. It's the only thing I can think of is logic, which is horrific. He did, in fact, say it was not John Fisher's fault that they were moving from Oakland, which is laughable. He is just a mouthpiece. He's a meat shield for the owners, but there have to be better ways to do that. That there's no reason to insult the fans of Oakland. And for that, I'm not only calling Rob Manfred our asshole of the week. He's a sociopath. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, to not be more diplomatic about it is a guy who clearly, it's almost like another guy who used to be president. They feel like he just say whatever he wants and there's no ramifications because he is the owner's mouthpiece. So no one's going to vote him out or anything.
But why? But why does he have to be? Why does he have to be a dick about it? What does he get? What does he gain from that? That's the only thing I could think of. He doesn't even know it because he has no human feeling. Boy, every time I have to bring him up, I say I hope it's the last time he's our asshole of the week, so I don't have to talk about him anymore. It's not going away because he's not going away. He's making the owners millions of dollars, billions of dollars every year. So he takes the slings and arrows when owners like John Fisher don't have to. Maybe that's the MO. Just be as offensive as possible so Fisher doesn't have to deal with the headlines and Rob steals them all. But I don't get it. I'm ready to move on as fast as possible into anything else. What do we have next on our list for our agenda tonight?
It is our all-star, all-asshole infield.
Yes, we are taking the Major League Baseball all-star ballot, removing everyone except for the 5 teams we cover, and going over the stats and qualifications of each of those 5 to determine the Major League A-holes all-stars this year. So we're going to break it down to the 5 infield positions tonight. We'll split it up into outfielders and DH next week, and then we'll do pitchers and starters and relievers in 2 weeks. That will actually be all-star week then. So we'll be wrapping this up right in time. So
look at that.
I think we might as well start right at first base if you'd like.
Sure. We're going to start at the bottom, everyone, and work our way up. This is kind of based on WAR, really.
Major League Baseball, I pulled all these stats from the actual ballot. It's funny. MLB shows batting average, which is hilarious. Then they go run. I think they do RBI,
home
runs, and OPS. Which is great. At least they do OPS, but I think it's hilarious they even bother to include batting average.
They love batting average.
They still do. I replaced that and looked up WAR on Baseball Reference, so technically it's BWAR, just to give you a comparison. That throws in, of course, the defensive metrics and base running, so it's not just offensive stats that we're basing on. So again, this is subjective. You and I can come up with different reasons. We're just going to come up with a consensus for the position, the selection for each position. But so you can use WAR if you want. I just wanted to put them up there so we have a frame of reference for everybody. So
yeah. So we'll start at the bottom with the Cubs and Trey Mancini. He's got a -0.8 WAR, 4 home runs, 21 RBIs, and a 680 OPS.
Literally every player from every starter from every team gets put on the All-Star ballot. So that made this exercise a little bit easier. I could just pull it from that. But Trey Mancini is not going to be an All-Star. He's not going to be a Major League A-holes All-Star either.
Coming up next is Torque. He's a -0.1 WAR, which I was a little surprised at.
Yeah, and that's where WAR is confusing, and that's where you kind of don't want to put too much weight into it, especially when it's in those low levels. But it's hard to say.
Yeah, 8 homers, 34 RBIs, pretty productive there, and a 699 OPS.
He's a good defender too. His OPS is pretty low, and I think that's changing slowly. But yeah, Torkelson was a little bit lower than I thought he would be.
Up next, must be from the Oakland A's because I don't know who it is. Ryan Noda.
Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of those. So
he's
having a good year.
Yeah, WAR 1.8, 7 dongs, 26 RBI.
He's on my fantasy team.
819 OPS.
My first place fantasy team.
Look at this, guys. Look at this guy. Up next is White Sox first baseman Andrew Vaughn.
Gene Hondo impression over there?
Yeah, a WAR of 0.3. I thought that was probably also as a little.
Yeah, that's confusing too.
How low? Because he's got 10 homers and he leads the pack with 42 RBIs and a 750, not the OPS, but a 72 OPS. And then number one, because he's the most well-rounded first baseman, is the way will say this, is Lamonte Wade Jr. for the Giants. He's got a 2.5 WAR, 9 homers, 27 RBIs, and an 878 OPS. Yeah, he also bats in the leadoff spot, which is a little bit different.
That's odd for a first baseman. You don't see that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was an outfielder.
Okay.
And then they moved him to first base after Brandon Belt left. So he's not a traditional first baseman. So
yeah. Now, the order you just read, I just put together and sent that over to you. Those are kind of my rankings. So if you want to, if you want to change that, right now I've got Lamont Wade Jr. as our late night Lamont Wade Jr.
Yes,
as our
there you go.
First base selection for Major League A-holes All-Stars. But I don't know if you wanted to make an argument for Andrew Vaughn.
Yeah, I mean,
42 RBI is impressive, but that's kind of a misleading stat at times. But usually, when it's a lot more than somebody else, then it's remarkable. But I don't know how you want to.
Well, I think so.
Parse that.
I mean, I think we probably end up sticking with Lamont Wade Jr. But when I think about first basemen, I think their job is normally, but this is an anomaly because Lamont Wade Jr. bats in the leadoff spot. But normally the first baseman's job is to drive in runs and hit home runs. And that's why, like, when you look at Torkelson's numbers, despite his WAR and his lower OPS, and Vaughn's numbers, you think, well, that's the first baseman because that's a traditional first baseman. So I don't know. I
got to make a choice here.
I mean,
there can only be one Major League A-holes All-Star at first base.
I mean, it's so weird because to me, WAR kind of tells it all. Lamont Wade Jr. is the best well-rounded player out of the other 4 at that position. So
it's not even close.
It's not even close.
Look at it too. So
yeah, I mean, Noda's closer at 1.8, but okay, Lamont Wade Jr. it is.
Cool.
All
right. We'll now that we've got all the baselines established, we have everything understood now. I think we can go quicker through these next 4. So
maybe it's gonna be
second base.
It was gonna be the all Giants team. It's gonna be weird.
It might be. There's quite a few Giants. You are the best team in the league too. So
Tony Kemp has a WAR of -1.3, 1 home run from the bottom, 488 OPS.
Yikes.
Something not terribly better is one Elvis Andrus with a -0.8, 1 homer. What?
Not making the same impact he did at the end of last season.
But the interesting thing about Elvis is his negative WAR has to do from his offensive stats, not his defensive stats. 1 homer, 13 RBIs, and a 530 OPS. Coming up next, Detroit Tiger Zach McKinstry. He's got a WAR of 1, 5 home runs, 14 RBIs, and a 715 OPS. Also, I think he was a badass of the week, wasn't he?
That was Zach Short actually, but
sorry,
different Zach. But yeah, McKinstry was one of the Tigers' hottest hitters for a time. Actually just came over from the Cubs, believe it or not. But yeah, I don't think I've liked his contribution. He's been a fire, like a spark plug for the team, but I don't think he's necessarily an all-star.
Up next, my favorite name in baseball, Nico Hoerner.
Is that like a pop culture reference that I'm not getting? Like, is that a cartoon? Like, what is that?
Yeah,
you've done that before.
Yeah, it's like I forget what cartoon it is, but his name just fits perfully into it. So that's
I haven't watched cartoons in quite some time, so I'm just.
Well, you got a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. Your life will change. Your WAR is 1.9. Not yours, Smitty. I think Nico's.
Damn it.
1.9. Sorry.
If I had a 1.9 WAR, just imagine how different this podcast would be.
We'd have listeners.
Exactly.
4 homers, 35 RBI, 708 OPS. Very solid season so far from Nico.
He's spent a lot of time on the IL as well. So
yeah, true. And holding on to the number 1 spot yet again is San Francisco Giant, Thairo Estrada, who I love. He's a spark plug. He gets the lineup going. He's got a 2.4 WAR, 9 homers, 28 RBIs, 807 OPS. I mean,
I think that's pretty easy. I think Nico would have given him a run for his money if he hadn't spent the time in the IL, but I think the way the stats spell out right now, it's pretty obvious. It's
yeah.
But I've never even heard of your guy before. So
you never heard of Estrada? Thairo Estrada. He's another farm system boy.
I don't watch a ton of West Coast National League baseball, so
it's the one team that has an above 500 record on this fucking podcast, man.
I have to start.
Respect.
So we will put him. We've got 2 Giants now as our all-star selections.
We're about to have 3. Moving over to third base, Smitty's vote for AL MVP, Yohan Moncada.
I forgot about that. Yeah. That's another L right there. Jesus Christ.
He can't stay on the field either. His WAR is flat. It's a 0. He's not winning any games. He's not losing any games for you.
Not bad.
Yeah. A whopping 3 homers and 13 RBIs with a 649 OPS. How the mighty have fallen.
MVP.
MVP. Yo.
Put the kiboshers on him. I don't know what's going on here.
I think you jinxed him.
I did.
Coming up, not too far behind him, Nick Maton. Is it Maton or
Maton? Yeah, I was confused about that. All of Detroit's been confused how to pronounce that name for quite some time.
WAR of -0.9.
Yeah.
6 homers, 23 ribby, and 570 OPS.
Yeah, he puts up homers in spurts, and then you don't hear from him for quite some time. So he's been a frustrating addition.
Up next, Jace Peterson, WAR of 0.4. Man, we have a lot of bad fucking third basemen. 5 homers, 20 RBIs, and a 639 OPS. There's another position, folks, that you should be looking for decent power numbers.
Yeah, I think that's what's kind of fun about this exercise. Not only are we figuring out who the best players are in the 5 teams we cover, but it kind of exposes where the weaknesses are coming from.
Yeah,
why we're floundering. So yeah, third base is a black hole for everybody but your Giants, it appears.
Up next, Patrick Wisdom with a WAR of also 0. 14 homers. There's some good power numbers.
Yeah, that's some serious power.
28 ribby. So a lot of solo shots there.
Yeah.
752 OPS.
That's amazing to be 752 with 14 homers. And then the 28 RBI is kind of hard to believe, but yeah.
That's painful fantasy play right there too.
That is
like, oh, I've got great power numbers. And you look at his RBIs, it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then leading the pack, San Francisco Giants third baseman J.D. Davis with a 1.4 WAR, 10 homers, 40 RBIs, and an 857 OPS. That is what you call a slam dunk.
That was probably the easiest one. I forget what the other. Yeah, that's definitely the easiest one so far. I was shocked. I was shocked and frustrated to notice when I was putting these together that we would be putting 3 San Francisco Giants on the board already.
Yeah.
All-star selections.
Next one's going to be pretty easy too.
Okay.
We're going to start at the rear again in shortstops, and the aforementioned Tim Anderson is leading the charge from behind. He's got a negative 0.8 WAR. He's got no home runs this year. He's got 10 RBIs and a 584 OPS.
I mean, this is starting to put things in context. We've talked about Tim a lot and what a bad season he had. He's the worst shortstop of Major League A-holes, which is hard to believe.
Yeah, I would have thought if you had asked me like to make a guess at who the top 3 shortstops would be on this list, it would be Swanson. This is in no particular order, but Swanson, Anderson, Baez would be the 3 guys we were talking about.
For sure.
That's not the case. Next up is it Aldimas?
You're going to do better than I will. So it's just
Aldimas Diaz, we'll say.
First initial A.
Diaz.
Diaz.
A. Diaz. WAR -1, 2 homers, 11 RBIs, and a 555 OPS coming up 5s.
All
right. The aging Brandon Crawford, -0.2 WAR. I don't think his pitching performance was accounted for this. 4 home runs, 20 RBIs, and a 679 OPS.
I forgot about that.
Yes. Coming up next, the aforementioned a few seconds ago, actually, Javier Baez, a WAR of 0.7, 5 homers, 35 RBIs, 620 OPS. And
by the way, Baez is only 0.2 WAR behind both Trey Turner and Carlos Correa.
There you go. So
put things in perspective there.
All your 2 main teams have done the right signings then, because easy. This is another slam dunk, a grand slam, whatever, a strike, a perfect inning, an immaculate
Yellowhammer.
Yes. Danby Swanson, a WAR of, it's probably going to be 3 after tonight. Is that 2.9?
Yeah.
Awesome. 7 homers, 31 RBI, 755 OPS. Danby Swanson, you are Major League A-hole all-star.
All right. So we just have catchers left at this point. We finally got somebody besides the Giants on the roster.
Yeah, and we will again, because on the ballot is a non-MLB roster candidate of Joey Bart.
I put him there because Major League Baseball has him there. So
yeah,
you can vote for him on the real ballot if you want to. But
when do they call him back up if he makes it? I don't think he's going to make it though. But
yeah, I don't think that's going to work out for him. But
we got a -0.2 WAR. We got no homers, 4 RBIs, and a 581 OPS. I'm kind of surprised he's this low, but Sox killer Eric Haas, -0.5, 3 homers, 17 RBIs, 573 OPS. Yasmani Grandal, renaissance year. He's got a 0.1 WAR. He's not cost anyone games, but that's probably defensively is why his WAR is so low. 5 homers, 18 RBIs, and a 713 OPS. Shea Langoliers.
Yes.
His WAR is -0.3. He's got 8 homers, 29 RBIs, and a 644 OPS. I mean, these catcher candidates, it's like the lesser of all the evils.
Yes.
And leading the pack somehow is Yan Gomes.
Love Yan Gomes.
He has a positive WAR. Only him and Grandal have positive WARs on this list. His is 0.8. He's almost giving you a game. 7 homers, 23 RBIs, and a 760 OPS. I mean,
that's a solid OPS too for a catcher. So I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think the infield is 3 Giants and 2 Cubs. I mean, that's just how it goes.
I think that's not how I drew it up. That's how it's going to be. So I think that's fun. I think that I wasn't sure. We do. I think in years past we've done Major League A-holes all-stars, but I don't know if we've done it in this format. So I kind of like it. We're also spreading it out over 3 shows, so we've got time to digest.
That's what's better about
That's probably what I think we did all of them in one segment last year. So
yeah, and I think we would just like bicker over each guy we thought should be it versus in a more diplomatic fashion like this.
Yeah, I don't think we had the stats in front of us either, so it'd be easy.
It's
self-evident. Well, fuck you.
Well, your guy has a chew problem. He's addicted.
So we'll keep this up. I'll put together the numbers for outfielders and DH for next week. We can go over those. We'll put together that.
We'll get some White Sox on this goddamn list
Yeah, maybe
finally.
maybe we'll get a Tiger. Gotta find a way to get an Oakland A on the roster as the rules, just like
I
in
have an
Major League
Oakland A on
Baseball.
my roster because of injury. I forget who it
I've got a
was.
few actually, but
Yeah, they're not terrible. Like if you remove them for single fantasy stats, they're
yeah,
not so bad.
yeah, exactly. We'll have more to talk about. So I think that was a successful experiment and
Yeah, that worked out well.
good way to wrap up this episode 128 of In the Hole. It's episode 30 of Socks Type Thing. Unless you had any shit we forgot.
No, I was pretty buttoned up this week.
All right. Yeah, you're sending me your outlines. I'm doing better outlines. So referencing during the show. So we're getting all
Fucking
professional over here.
professionals. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that, we'll wrap up this episode. In the meantime, you can find us on social media. Pete is over there at Socks Type Thing, and I'm at Major League A-Holes. You can find us on YouTube, our YouTube channels, getting some numbers. Check it out. I cut up all these segments so you don't have to digest us in hour and a half parts. You can see us in much smaller doses.
Soak it all in. Take it all in, everybody.
You can find us on the web at majorleagueaholes.com and sockstypething.com, as well as our merchandise at aesthetics.shop, ASSTHETICS.shop. And you can find these podcasts anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I'm going to declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Word Hole Media.